last week the House unanimously passed a bill by voice vote that would allow victims of 9/11 to sue Saudi Arabia for their funding of those attacks if they actually did fund it. Now, this bill mirrors a similar bill passed by the Senate earlier this year, and now they go to President Obama, who has promised us that he's going to veto this. In fact, as of now, he hasn't, but by the time you're seeing this, there's a good possibility that he's already issued this veto. A lot of progressive, liberal, Democratic websites right now are saying, no, this is a good thing. We want him to veto it. We do not want to do this because what's going to happen is it's going to open the door for retaliation from these other countries. They might start suing us for these drone strikes. They might start suing us for the Iraq War. Well, to that I say good. When we screw up, we need to be held accountable. There's nothing wrong with that. Second of all, there's nothing stopping them from doing that right now, you idiots. If they wanted to sue the United States for that, they could. The House of Representatives can't pass a bill that allows another country to sue our country. I mean, that's basic, politics, civics 101. The reason this bill is so important is because right now, United States citizens, contractors working overseas, what have you, can only sue countries who are designated by the United States as state sponsors of terrorism. Iran, Syria, North Korea, and the like. Saudi Arabia does not have that designation, and that is why we cannot sue them. But here is the story that no one has talked about yet. Anti-terrorism lawsuits have been incredibly successful since the 1980s, and they are incredibly difficult to prove. Earlier this week, I spoke with one of the foremost lawyers who has handled these cases for decades. And he told me that this is how it works. First of all, you have to determine whether or not the government is giving money to terrorist organizations. Once you have established that, you have to determine if that money was used to fund this particular terror attack, say terror attack X. And then, was the victim suing injured in terror attack X? If we find out that Saudi Arabia is funding terrorism, but they didn't fund the 9/11 attacks, guess what? We can't sue. This is not going to open the floodgates for lawsuits against Saudi Arabia. What it's going to do is let us know what they're funding. If they have nothing to hide, let us bring the lawsuits, because then they're just going to get dismissed. Let us know where that money is going. The lawyer I spoke with also told me that these governments and the banks look at terrorism as a business. Because think about this. You have terrorist cells all over the world, really. And they have money. Terror attacks take a lot of money. They're not just sitting with cash in a cave. That money is in banks. Those banks know where the money came from, but due to the laws in whatever country they're funneling it through, they don't have to disclose. They just happily pay out when they write a check or when they try to wire money somewhere else. Credit Suisse is one of the foremost terrorist money laundering banks in the world. And that is another thing that we find out through these lawsuits. We find out what banks are funneling money for terrorists. That is important knowledge that we have to know. We could shut them down. We can bankrupt terrorist countries. We can bankrupt terror cells, just like what Morris Dees, the legendary civil rights attorney, did with the Ku Klux Klan. He sued them financially and ended up bankrupting that organization. And it almost completely killed their power in the United States. They have never returned to what they used to be in the early part of the 19th century or 20th century. That is what we could do to terrorism. But for some reason, President Obama wants to protect Saudi Arabia, the country that is ranked as one of the worst in terms of human rights, a country that treats women worse than they treat animals. Same thing with homosexuals or anybody who's not their religion. They may not have funded the 9/11 terrorist attacks. But if President Obama vetoes this legislation and does not allow American citizens to sue to at least find out, then we'll never know for sure if they funded 9/11 or if they funded any other attacks across the globe. And that's not okay. There is no reason to protect Saudi Arabia. And if the only reason you're doing it is because you're scared of retribution in the form of lawsuits against the United States, then your cowardice is preventing the people in this country who lost loved ones in those attacks from ever getting justice.